Good evening, everybody. This is Robin with another edition of Horror Pop After Midnight, and my guest is filmmaker Nathan Tape. How's it going, Nathan?
It's going well. Thanks for having me, Robin.
Yeah, this is going to be really fun. I checked out your dark comedy road trip buddy horror film about juggalos called Off Ramp. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Certainly. Off Ramp is a story about two juggalos who are lifelong friends, and they are on their yearly sojourn, their perennial sojourn to the Gathering of the Juggalos in Ohio. And after the plot is basically one of them, Trey, has been in jail for a year. He gets out of the jail, and they head out on their road trip. Of course, they encounter a lot of issues, including a police officer tripping on LSD, and a kind of cult-like group in the backwoods of Louisiana. And needless to say, they get in a lot of trouble on their way to the Gathering of the Juggalos.
Yes, and I wasn't real familiar about Juggalos. The only thing I knew about Juggalos was Insane Clown Posse because I was a fan of pro wrestling and they were in pro wrestling. But I didn't know there was a Juggalo lifestyle out there that they live by. So when you were doing this film, did you go to any of these Juggalo gatherings to do research on the film and get ideas?
Yeah, so a little backstory about, like, I just kind of had this wacky idea. I watched a really great documentary called American Juggalo. I was kind of familiar with Juggalos. When I was in high school, I think I had like a maxi cassette single tape of Chicken Huntin', one of the like early ICP songs. And so like I was like aware of Juggalos, but I wasn't really that into it. And this is around the time, kind of, early 2000s, mid to late 2000s. There was a lot of like Vice documentaries about Juggalos, and there was kind of like a kind of a zeitgeist around them. And so I had this idea about Juggalos, and to me, I watched in American Juggalo, the documentary. The thing that I was unaware of about Juggalos, I was aware they wore face paint. I was aware that they, came from kind of underprivileged areas. But what I wasn't aware about was this concept of Juggalo family love. And that was what the documentary really showed me, was that a lot of these Juggalos find their chosen family, their friends, the other Juggalos, to be more of their family, more of their chosen family. And I was really touched by that. I thought, this is a really beautiful thing, that these characters who may look not like the most appealing characters, with their face paint and maybe listening to rap music that has a lot of violent lyrics and things like that in it, but then that they would come together and share this like family love. So I found that really inspiring. So I had this idea, and I wrote the script. And I also spent a lot of time working in like bigger production. I was a gaffer in lighting and television for about 12, 15 years. And I watched a film called Family, which had a Juggalo component to it. And in the credits of Family, there was a producer I had worked with, a guy named Kenneth Yu. So I contacted Kenneth and I said, I need your Juggalo contacts. I need to connect with these people. So Kenneth hooked me up with two people. One was Bill Dale, who is the manager of Psychopathic Records, he's ICP's manager. And the other one was a guy named Scotty D. Scotty D runs this website called fagolovers.net, which is like one of the, if not the biggest fan site for Juggalos. So I talked with Scotty. I sent him some emails. I sent him the script. He gave me some notes. We kind of got to know each other. And then in the summer of 2021, I decided, I was like, I need to go to the Gathering. If I'm going to make this movie, I need to experience what it's like to be at the Gathering of the Juggalos. So, and also, you've seen the film, there's a lot of, there's sort of a kind of a nature documentary element to it. There's like all these shots of people at the Gathering and Juggalos. So I wanted to capture that B-roll. And I was like, the only way to get this is to go to the gathering. So in 2021, I went to the gathering of the Juggalos. I brought a camera along, and I made arrangements to meet up with Scotty D. And when I got there, when I connected with Scotty D. We started talking music. We instantly hit it off. He's a lovely fellow, and anybody who's interested in Juggalo culture, he loves to talk to. So he then introduced me to his, like, nexus of Juggalo buddies, and we all got to be really close friends. I felt, I experienced Juggalo family love myself. I experienced that desire to be accepted. And again, that was what the film was about. Like, it's always about the kind of, we're all little weirdos, and we've all maybe not felt accepted, and maybe we felt like outcasts. But we all unite by something, and that's what I found so inspiring by the Juggalos, was that they were like, no matter where they were from, they all kind of came together because of the music. So the long and short of it is I got to be really good friends with a number of them, and they're in the film. At the end of the film, you'll see a number of the Juggalos that I got to be friends with. And like I said, I consider some of them my close friends today. And I even became a Juggalo being at the gathering. I was bathed in Fago by Insane Cloud Posse. I did the whole thing. And I really, I found, a really great connection to these people.
So how did it feel to put the Juggalo face paint on?
I didn't actually put any face paint on, personally. But I can tell you that, our actors, Scott and John, who play Trey and Silas, they put it on every day. So it was something. But I can tell you that it was pretty wild to be sprayed with Fago in a large group of people on stage. That was pretty wild.
Yeah, let's talk about the actors who play Trey and Silas. The actor who played Silas, I was convinced he was a legit Juggalo, how he portrayed it, his mannerisms, his little, rap techniques, about rapping about violence and getting into trouble with some of the horror aspects part of the film. I thought he was really a Juggalo.
Well, that's a compliment to him, and I know that he would be very happy to hear that, because I can tell you that Scott has never rapped before. He had Scott in his personal life is nothing like Silas, but only in the sense that Scott has a really great sense of humor, and like that in that way he is a lot like Silas, and Scott is a bit of a troublemaker in a way too, but not nearly to the extent that Silas is. But I think that Scott was just really attracted to the role, and he found something really in it. And Scott often talks about when we have been at that he was kind of inhabiting this character of Silas, and part of that is because he has this crazy hairdo, right? With all the things, and it was so we shot primarily we shot three weeks for the initial shoot. And we were shooting 6-day weeks, so there was no time, and it took like 4 hours to do the hair the initial time. So he didn't have time to take it out. He had to live with the hair in for 3 weeks, which was not very comfortable, as you can imagine. Sleeping with it was pretty challenging. So he basically had to live with his hair like that. So I think that was one part of it that made him so able to inhabit the character of Silas so much. I could tell you that when we wrapped, and the moment we wrapped, he just got the hair undone, and it was like this look of pure ecstasy on his face to finally have the hair undone. But what's also amazing is that he and John, who plays Trey, they had never known each other before, and the chemistry that they built in this short time is just an unbelievable thing. I mean, I was so because here it's like, hey, here's this person, now be their best friend, like as if you've known each other for your whole lives. And I mean, credit to both of them that they really did that, and they really bonded. And yeah, they have an unbelievable chemistry, no question.
Yeah, they sure did, because I was convinced they were like brothers, because you can tell in the film how they played off each other. It felt like, they were really, Trey and Silas, like like real life versions just like popped out of screen that you would see like at a type of, Juggalo film festival, which I really liked. Let's talk about the actress who played Eden.
Mm-hmm.
She nailed her role. That role was so convincing. How you can feel the sadness and being wanted and wanted a family. I felt that through her eyes in the film, and I kind of liked her look. She kind of reminded me of a Tinkerbell Juggalo a little bit with the little Tinkerbell hairdo.
Yes, Ashley Smith, she's awesome. She actually was a Juggalo growing up, so she actually has a little bit of history with being a Juggalo. She grew up in South Texas, East Texas, and her older sister was like a really big Juggalo and big fan of Insane Clown Posse, and she had gone to a couple of like regional gatherings, and so there was a bit of actual like Juggalo, history for her. She is mostly a model. She's actually kind of, if you look her up, she's actually kind of a big deal as a model. She did, stuff for like Forever 21 and Playboy and things like that. She was connected to me through a friend who worked with her, was in an acting class with her in Los Angeles. And when we met, I was just like, oh my God, you are Eden. I mean, it's just so like, there's no question. And I think she did an unbelievable job. She's just, you're exactly right. The carrying of the sadness in her eyes is something that's just, you can't direct, or I certainly couldn't. She just kind of, brought so much of it. And she has a very limited acting experience too. She's only been in a couple of things. So, both Scott and John had, have a bit more of a acting history. So for her to come in and just like nail it. So, I mean, it's just, I'm constantly moved by her performance when I watch it. And you're exactly right. She's excellent.
Yeah, I did. I kind of got a little tear in my eye, and it's really hard for me to get a tear in my eye, but she did give me the tear how she portrayed that character. Now, let's talk about the psycho scarecrow, man. That guy creeped me out. He looked like one of those demons that just came up from hell. And when he was doing that crazy ceremony and the whole breast milk and all that, that was giving me the whole heebie-jeebies. And when you go inside Scarecrow's house, that was creepy. Where was that filmed at?
So we shot the whole film. I'm from New Orleans, and I live in New Orleans, and I've been in production in New Orleans here. So we filmed in a place called St. Bernard, Louisiana, or Chalmette, nearby, which is about 10 miles east of New Orleans. It's very close to where you get into the swamps. It's basically like where we filmed was at a place that was really right next to a levee wall that basically they shut off during like hurricanes and things. So very much down into the bayou, and it was a double wide trailer on a location. My production designer Michael DeMarco did an unbelievable job inside the trailer. I mean, he just, it was all kinds of great things that he put in there, and I always wanted it to be, you drive by trailer parks, and sometimes you see all that aluminum foil in the windows, and that was like something I really wanted to do. I was like, just cover the windows in aluminum foil. We'll make little cracks in it and shoot light through and all that kind of stuff. But he took it and ran with it. And Scarecrow is played by another an excellent actor. I was very blessed to have such an incredible cast. His name's Jared Bankins. And Jared, again, if you look him up, he's been around. He's a very great character actor in New Orleans, does a lot of, he's kind of almost in almost everything that shoots down here. And truth be told, the thing is that Jared is actually, I can attest to it, is actually an incredibly kind human being and not the creep that he portrays. But he inhabits that, and treated it with so much seriousness. But we also we wanted to create this character who was such a controlling force in Eden's life too. It's just kind of where the breast milk thing kind of comes from. for a number of reasons. One, I always love like when bad guys drink milk in movies, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, yeah, it's very common. You know, Alex in Clockwork Orange. There's Alex right there.
Yeah.
And you know, what's his name in No Country for Old Men, Javier Bardem's character, and so milk has always been, I think because it's like such a connection to like what's innocent, right? It's our first food, and it's such we always kind of connected with being a kid, that it seems so innocent, but at the same time, it's like this kind of thing. So I just thought that it was such an interesting thing to exert this control over this other person, and it would just be such a mind fuck to be like, I have to like, give my breast milk to my brother, and it works. And yeah, funny, I'll tell you a really funny, not funny, but a really interesting story about the ceremony scene. So we had 2 days to shoot the ceremony scene because it was so kind of involved, and without giving any spoilers away, there's some, special effects that happen in it. So we had 2 days to shoot it. And as you know, the scene really revolved around Scarecrow.
Yes, it did.
So the night we were going to shoot night one of the ceremony, Jared was rushed to the hospital because he got a blood clot in his neck.
Ooh.
So we were like, first of all, we were all worried about him. We were hoping he's okay, and those things can be very serious. So we basically had to shoot around him. So what we did was we set up the shot for the wide shot, and we just kind of like set up where everybody would be.
Yeah.
And somebody else sat in his chair, and then we kind of designed it. And then the first night we shot all the coverage, right? We shot Eden and Silas and Trey, and we shot the special effects and the inserts. I actually sat in Scarecrow's chair and wore his costume, and again, without giving anything away, I swung the hatchet. It won't give too much around.
Yeah,
that was me. But so we got all of that stuff, and then we're just hoping against hope and praying that Jared would be okay and be able to come back to us the next day. Night. We were shooting at night, but thankfully he recovered. He was able to come back the next night. We shot the wide shots. We shot his coverage, and in the end, I mean, you'd never tell, right? It all flows seamlessly together. But that's one of those crazy challenges that you have in an independent film. It was tough. It was tough at the time, but in the end, I think it made the film better in so many ways.
I think it did, and I do totally agree with you. That was some great cinematography shots during the ceremony. I love to zoom into it where I'm not going to spoil everything too, where they, do the, the demonic stuff, I'm not going to, but I love the shots, how that was well done. Now, let's talk about Randy the Cop. Randy the Cop cracked me up, especially when Silas gave him some, LSD. Boy, he, I don't know. It felt like he was really on it because he played that role as a fucked up, drugged up cop, man. The mannerisms, how he did his facial gestures, and how he was this cop driving around like high in LSD. I mean, he nailed that role, and through that whole movie, I loved his little wisecracks, his little jokes. It was funny.
Thank you. Yeah, another great actor, a friend of mine too. His name's Miles Doliak. Great. He's excellent. He's also actually it's funny enough, he's the chair of the film department here at Loyola New Orleans, at one of the universities here. Miles and I work together. He's also a director as well, and I act as his cinematographer often. We've done like 3 movies together in that kind of capacity. And we had someone, it was one of those things we when you're trying to make an independent movie, you kind of try to cast the biggest name you can to try to raise money. And we had someone in that role that was kind of one of those people who had, some clout in that way, and it fell through, and I knew my buddy Miles would be perfect in it. So we were able to cast him. Funny story though, is that Miles has never done any psychedelics in his life. So that was a really interesting thing, because even before I was like, do you want to come over and eat some mushrooms so that we can get, you know, I, of course, have done psychedelics in my life, but that was one of those things that I told him, you know, certain things like, hey, you know, the jaw becomes a thing, you know, whenever, you know, you do that, you know, the jaw is something you're consciously doing. And he, you know, that's the beauty of a great actor, is that they can put themselves into that place. And I think it's among Miles's best performances. And one of my favorite things about the Randy Cox character, again, without spoiling it, is that he has a redemption, right?
Yeah.
Even though he, you know, he's kind of a shit, and he's an agent of, like, kind of not evil, but so much, but he's an agent of chaos that's kind of like messing things up for our heroes. And in the end, he's able to sort of redeem himself and has a bit of a redemptive arc. And I think that's so great when you get a chance to do that with a character. And I think that's true to a lot of people, too, who have experiences with psychedelics sometimes, that they can be revealing about certain things. You sort of see things in a different way that you haven't seen them before. And so that's what we were trying to achieve. I'm glad it hit.
Yeah, I really enjoy how it ended too. I loved it because, without spoiling or anything, there was a lot of sweet justice and revenge that finally, you know, finished off the story, which really gave you a smile on your face. I just loved it. You know, the sweet revenge part of it, and how it ended, and how, you know, strangers can be together and become this powerful family. And the ending was just, I enjoyed it. It really surprised me, because I thought it was going to go another way. I was like, oh shit, where is Nathan going to take us on the certain shot towards the end? And then when he did it, I was smiling. I was like, thank God, you know. I love films with happy endings. There's some, you know, it's like, I wish it was a bad ending, because, you know, certain characters, it's like, I hope he gets a bad ending. But, you know, I really enjoyed the ending. And then let's talk about the film score too. I also liked how you did the accordion music. It kind of had that carnival feel, Juggalo type of horror vibe to it when it was playing in certain scenes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I have another excellent composer. His name's Rick Nelson. Rick, it's interesting. He and I have worked together on and off over the years for a long time. We got connected first when I was doing my student film back in like 2006, and he helped me with something. And then years later, I was doing a short film, you know, in 2019, and I reached out to Rick again, and he just produced some amazing stuff. He's one of those, you know, brilliant musicians who can just play any instrument. It's just amazing. He's been in a number of different bands, the Afghan Wigs. He was in a band. And he has his own studio and does those stuff. So when I was coming up with the kind of the concept for the score, there's actually there's an Aphex Twin song that I was really connected to. I've always liked this song, but there's a song. It's called Penti Harmonium, and it's basically like, it's on a harmonium, which is very similar to an accordion. But it's basically Aphex Twin was playing it on this harmonium, and exactly that. It had that sort of carnival feel, but sort of a fucked up dark carnival feel. Not this like happy-go-lucky, but there's a little something ominous. And so, you know, Rick and I, we worked together, you know, very much on that score. And I mean, it's one of my favorite things about the film too. I mean, he absolutely I loved it. He just does such a great job. Really, really. Polyphonic Spree, that's another band that he was in. I mean, he's a master of strings, right? Like violins and just a small, like, attest to how, like, talented this guy is. I wanted, at the end of the movie, we used the Insane Clown Posse song "Miracles," which was always a big inspiration for the film too. And it's kind of funny because "Miracles" has sort of become like the song that, like, people kind of laugh at ICP for, because there's like the line about magnets, how do they work, and like they've had a number of things where they were kind of mocked for that song. But I saw like some actual genuine beauty in that song, right? I saw that this thing of like, well, there are miracles that happen every day in life, and you have to kind of be looking for the miracles to have them happen. So I knew I wanted to do a cover of Miracles at the end of the movie for the credits in the end. And so I said, Rick, I want you to do a cover of Miracles, but with a ukulele. Because, again, a ukulele kind of had sort of like, not carnival, but it kind of got a light kind of feel. And he was like, well, I've never played a ukulele before. And I was like, okay. And then the next day he goes, well, I just went out and got a ukulele and I ended up playing it, and this is what I came up with. And I was like, oh my God, Rick, you're a genius.
Hey, it was that was my favorite score through the whole film. I mean, I would love to have it just like cruising around playing it. People's like, that guy's creepy.
Hopefully we'll release the soundtrack one day, because you're right. I really truly love the music myself.
I did. I really enjoyed it because I know of Insane Clown Posse. Like I said, I'm not big into Juggalo lifestyle, but I've known people that were in it that, like you said, are very nice and polite. I had a couple people that introduced me into it. And then another thing about the film, too, I love how you made Silas a little bit of a pro wrestling fan, the Juggalo wrestling. I love the one scene where he, not spoiling it, where he put a sleeper hold on somebody. I was like, no way, he did not do a sleeper hold.
Yeah, no, that was glad you picked up on that. Yeah, that was definitely intentional. That he knew about the wrestling, and that it was a part of who he was, and it came to pass, and it came to work that he was able to show off some of his wrestling moves in that situation, and throughout too. Silas gets a really cool redemption too towards the end of the film. He gets to do the kind of interesting thing in the film where it's like it starts out as Trey's film, and like it's kind of like he's doing the voiceover. You start with Trey, but really kind of like in the middle of the movie, you kind of shift, and it sort of becomes Silas's movie towards the second half. I mean, it's still it's always a buddy film, and it's about the two of them. But it really sort of kind of shifts towards being more of a Silas's film in a lot of ways, and I think that it just came out. It worked out.
It did. And the cool thing I liked about the film is, I'm a big fan of this. I love how you did more practical effects, and you didn't put that much blood in the film. I mean, there's nothing wrong seeing a good bloody film, but I also like a good film practical effects with not much blood in it, because it still makes it a good film.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm with you. I'm not a huge fan of CGI. I mean, there's a couple of little CGI things that we had to do in it just to, because you have to at some point. We don't have the Christopher Nolan budget, obviously, to do everything practical. But I have always a really big fan of practical effects. And again, I was really, because of my history working in kind of larger productions around town, I was able to kind of cull some favors.
Yeah.
I got a Carlos Savant, has done a number of, professional special effects artists. And, again, it's hard because I don't want to give away the.
No, don't.
I won't, but I'll just say that he always wanted to do that gag. And so when I approached him about that specific gag that happens at the end of the film, he was like, oh, yes, I've been wanting to do this forever. And, I mean, it comes off really well, I think.
Oh, I think so, too. And the audience who go sees it, they're going to love it. And I totally agree with you on that, too. So when you're not filmmaking and enjoying your stuff, in the world, cinematography and filmmaking, what does Nathan like to do? Do you have a passion that you enjoy outside of filmmaking?
It would probably be watching more films. I mean, that's not necessarily outside of filmmaking. I actually, because basically, I had this script. Sorry, I'll back up a little bit. So, I was a gaffer for a long time. And then during the pandemic, I really kind of like looked inside, like I think a lot of people did. And it was like really what makes me really happy. And being a gaffer is a really great job, but you're still kind of, it's not as creatively fulfilling as other things. So I made a decision that I was going to stop gaffing and I was going to make my own film. And I had the script, and we then worked on it, made it better. But I knew I wanted to do that. So then, since I made Off Ramp, I've shot. I DP, cinematographer, doing a few things here or there. But I'm actually going to start teaching at Loyola this next year. So in the fall, I'll probably be teaching at Loyola. So I am a huge movie fan. I mean, you can see a bit of like some of the movie posters.
Yeah,
I'm an absolute cinephile.
Me too.
I love watching movies. It's really is my greatest passion is film. And I've tried to do this thing where I watch a movie a day. And sometimes you miss a day here or there, but you try really hard. There's another thing. I got this 1001 movies you must see before you die.
I have that book.
And well, there you go. I've been for 3 years. I've been working on it, just like trying to cross something off every day. And it's a challenge because some of them, particularly some of the early silent stuff, like the Abel Gant stuff, it's like 6 hours long, and you're like, oh man, So some of the really long ones I've yet to get to. But it is my desire to get through every one of the movies in the book. And I will say that like it's really opened my eyes to a lot of films. I mean, I thought I considered myself, a cinephile before, but really going through that book and seeing stuff, there's a lot of stuff I was not really aware of, Cinema Nuovo in Brazil, the Glauber Yoka, like he did this incredible movie called Black God, White Devil, which I had never even heard of until I saw it in that book. And now I consider it, a fantastic film. That's that. So other than that, hang out with my dog, watch movies, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm like you too. I'm a huge cinephile too, and since I do reviews and podcasting, I'm watching movies every day, man. I cannot get tired of it. I love going to the movies. The general manager and everybody at my local movie theater knows me by name. They're like, so what are you going to see today? Are you going to see a double feature, or are you going to see a triple feature or single? And I'll be like, I just don't know. And I totally agree with you too, being the cinephile too. There's a lot of movies I've dwelled in too that I never knew existed, which really made me appreciation of cinema. And another I'm a big fan of cinematography, through certain genres of films. And I love the uniqueness and how certain, cinematographers and camera operators do certain shots, because that's a hard job to do just to get that perfect zoom or pan shot. All the movies I watch, I always look for that too. I'm just a big, cinematographer fan. And so what's that one horror film that's your go-to film that you can watch over and over again?
Easy, The Shining.
Ooh.
The Shining is among my favorite films, and as far as a horror film, I would say that would be, if I could only watch one, it would be The Shining. But if I could watch two, I would put Rosemary's Baby as probably number two, because those are some of my absolute favorite. But Stanley Kubrick is, again, it's like there's,
yeah, I love the posters.
Kubrick is my guy. I think for my money, I think he's the greatest in my opinion. I think there's a lot of great. I just think that he really, for my taste, he just really nailed it. I love The Shining, and again, Rosemary's Baby. But I like horror too. I like a lot. I like Giallo too.
I love Giallo.
Yeah, Argento is an absolute
brilliant
masterpiece. The POV shots and things. Bava. I like it all. It's kind of, and I love it when somebody does something new too. I actually really enjoyed Beau is Afraid, which I thought was a really unique, the Ari Aster film this year. But what was really interesting about Beau is Afraid is that it led me to La Casa Lobo. Have you seen this film?
No, I heard of it, and I definitely want to see it.
I highly recommend it. It is one of the freakiest things I've ever seen. And it's all stop motion.
I love it.
They're these Chilean filmmakers, and they did the animated sequence in Beau is Afraid. And that was the thing, is that Beau is Afraid like it was good, but it led me to La Casa Lobo, which is such a wild thing. I really think it's an unbelievable film. Highly recommend.
I'll tell you one film you need to check out too. It was great. It had Robert Mitchum in it. It was like creepy and it was psychological. Night of the Hunter.
Love Night of the Hunter. Unbelievable film. Charles Lawton's only directorial. He only did one film, but you're right. And the fact that they made a movie that bleak at that time is just unbelievable. Another great one that's really early is Peeping Tom.
Sure that was a messed up film for its time. When I watched that was kind of disturbing for its time.
Absolutely. Well, and not to mention that it's like the film camera is his weapon.
Yeah.
And like, what an amazing statement to be talking about. I mean, at those guys, I think that was, I know it was Michael Powell, but I don't know that he had linked up with Pressburger yet, but the Powell and Pressburger duo, those are another amazing group of filmmakers pairing up. But yeah, the Peeping Tom is another one that you're just like, oh my, I can't believe they did this back then. You know?
I can't believe it. I watched that, and I think I have to blame another person. I have to blame to watch messed up, fucked up movies. I have to blame Joe Bob Briggs. He introduced me to a lot of films. He did some films I never heard of. I was like, Joe Bob, what are you making me watch? And then I watch it, and I was like, sometimes I wish I could just meet. I met Joe Bob once, but I would love to go back to him and go, why'd you make me have a fucked up head watching all these crazy obscure exploitation type of films and all that, and I blame you for that, for making me weird.
It just connected with you because that's the thing. That's what Off Ramp is about. We're all weirdos, right? We're all weird, and particularly whether again to me, Juggalo is just kind of like a metaphor for outcasts. That's what I really connected to it. It's just that so this story is specifically about that, but it's really for everyone. And I think that's also too, one of my good Juggalo buddies, Jimmy Soda, who's in the film. He's a massive Joe Bob Briggs fan, so he will be very excited to hear you say that. And you're right. I just think we all have this, this taste of these things, and we like the macabre and the weird, and that's, like I said, this is what, this is the kind of, these are our people, you know what I mean? And I think that's what Off Ramp is about finding your people, finding the people that are weird in the same way you're weird,
Hey, there's nothing wrong with it. The weird's the new thing.
Exactly. We debuted, we had our world premiere at a film festival in Poland called Splat Film Fest, which is a really great genre film festival, awesome stuff. And it was really interesting because I was sort of like, it was predominantly a horror festival. And, Off Ramp is more horror adjacent than it is like a horror film. And, but not only did they accept us, it was really interesting because the festival director, Monica, she said after the film, she was like, this is now my comfort film because like, this is like, because it does have a happy ending and there is a redemption, which again is kind of funny because I wouldn't think of myself that I would make a happy ending movie, right? Like I said, I like The Shining, which is not a happy ending. I mean, kind of, but like that's the kind of stuff that I typically like. But then when I made the film, I was like, this is the way it should end. You want a happiness for these characters.
So will this film go on streaming, and will it come onto physical media?
Yes. So we are entering into a deal right now with Freestyle Digital Media, which is a distributor, and they are we're going to have do a very small theatrical run, probably LA, New Orleans, and maybe Detroit. I don't know yet on the third one. That we're kind of just figuring that out ourselves. We will retain the theatrical rights because we also hope to maybe have screenings around some Juggalo events or have our own kind of things. And then, but they are doing it. So Freestyle will then it'll of course start on pay VOD like iTunes and Amazon. And then they'll look for a deal. I'm not exactly sure which service it will end up on. but that they'll negotiate that deal, and there will be a physical media portion they're doing, which was very important to me because I have a huge DVD collection myself.
Same here.
And yes, and Juggalos are also big physical media people, like more so than a lot of others. They buy CDs and DVDs. So there will be DVDs. I think it'll be that will be available. I'm not sure the details of it yet. It's something that's very important to me that there is at least some physical media representation.
I think so too, and I better get a signed copy.
Absolutely, you are welcome to. I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, just remember that.
Yeah, you may have to remind me.
Oh, I will, and you'll be like, "Oh fuck, he's bothering me again."
Not at all. Glad to. Very, very glad to. So anybody who loves my film, this is a dream come true. You know what I mean? Like, I've always loved making films. So and I love cinema. So getting a chance to make this film and that it connects with people is really the greatest joy you could ever imagine,
Yeah, and like I said, speaking of, being different and all that, I grew up in California, so I grew up, around the punk rock and metal scene, or, around Southern California, so that's type of family like the Juggalos too, because I kind of felt like Trey and Silas too, because, I was an outcast, growing up in California. All my friends were like skaters, surfers, metalheads, and of course Dungeons and Dragon nerds, because I was a big D&D kind of guy.
Yeah, I mean, who wants to be normal anyway? I mean, what is normal, and why would you want to be that? Screw that. But you're right, there is. I remember, because as the same thing. I was kind of into, growing up, I was into like punk and indie rock. And
yeah.
Stuff, and it is I think that's why the Juggalo thing, connected with me so much, because it wasn't. It felt familiar. It felt like. Oh, because that's the thing is, growing up, when you were in high school, you see somebody else with a, Black Flag T-shirt, you're going to be like, oh, and you go talk to that guy because you're like, or girl, you go talk to that person because you're like, oh, we like the same things, and suddenly, that's how you kind of build your people, you find those kind of communities. And you're right, there is, in punk rock, there certainly was that kind of a little bit of that sense of community.
Yeah, and I was one of those ones that wore the Social Distortion T-shirt.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I love
Social D.
Yeah, I love some Social D. I've seen him in concert so many times, man. But where can everybody find you on social media, and where they can go to learn a little bit more about Off Ramp?
Yeah, so right now we're just on Instagram. I am Damn Nathan, DAMNATHAN at Instagram, and then we have Off Ramp Film is our tag on Instagram. We will have a website eventually. It will be offrampfilm.com, and but that's me. I'm also on Facebook, Nathan Tape. If you want to look me up there. I don't really use Twitter or X or anything like that, but maybe that'll change soon. But those would be the best ways, on Instagram, Off Ramp Film, and Damn Nathan, and there's constant updates there.
All right, Nathan, thank you so much for coming out of your busy schedule to come onto the show tonight.
Oh, thanks so much, Robin. Really appreciate it. It's great to meet another cinephile. I see your Star Wars posters behind you, and it's always great to connect with someone else who loves cinema. It's the greatest joy in my life. So great. Thank you very much for reaching out.
Yeah, and everybody, thank you for listening to Horror Pop After Midnight. Have a great